Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee? I don't drink coffee. You sure? It's cultist coffee. What makes it cultist coffee? I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it. Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. How are you? I hope you are doing well. I apologize for being a few minutes late. Again, I was working last night late and lost track of time on new stuff with the AI, with ChatGPT, and still working on kind of learning stuff and also being able to do things that I have never been able to do before but had wanted to. And so I've gotten my sleep schedule and everything completely out of whack. And but it's been extremely fun last night. It's incredible that we've got all of a sudden we've hit a time where we can have effectively unlimited art, as well as all of a sudden ChatGPT 4 is just making all kinds of things possible that, for me at least, have never been possible before. So that means I didn't get up writing this morning. So I've got to completely reset my sleeping schedule. Although tomorrow I do have lunch with family, so I've got that. And today, this morning, Tomocrat says, it's okay, I'll wait. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I completely forgot about that. By chance, I am wearing this shirt, so it does have green on it. So this is the shirt I've been wearing. So here's the shirt I've got. So I am actually wearing green this morning. So there you go. How about that? Happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody. Hey, and oh, wow. And St. Patrick's Day is on a Friday. So everybody can go have a great time and a great party. We're going to be talking about Dark Sun today. You know, it reminds me, there was something called, when I worked at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. St. Patrick's Day was always during their spring break. And so I believe it was before spring break, but there was something called unofficial. Years and years and years ago, somebody started, like one of the bars put out a sign that said unofficial St. Patrick's Day, because everybody was gone during actual St. Patrick's Day. And so they had something called the unofficial St. Patrick's Day. And it was actually just called unofficial. Eventually it just became unofficial. So everybody like have a party. This is unofficial. And it became a major thing. Still is, as far as I know, a major thing up there, where everybody just goes absolutely bananas before St. Patrick's Day. I don't know, like 2 weeks before or something like that, for unofficial. So that's what I think of there. So good morning, Zero the Blade. Good morning, Daniel. Robert, hey, everybody. Draco is here. Robert asks, how do I do a radio interview and a business meeting and listen to the show at the same time? I like Joe's. Tell the radio interviewer to wait, make the business meeting, listen to the show, and everybody wins. Hey, everybody, hang on. We got to talk about Dark Sun for just a second right here. Good morning, Carl. Make stuff. Sable Phoenix says, there's absolutely nothing wrong with worshiping Nyarlathotep. Good morning, Sable Phoenix. Gashrin. Hello. Hello, Gashrin. Good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. It is so good to have you here. And Stargate Mind. Robert Romano, Children of the Grave, just started working on G.3 Turbo. Children of the Grave. Okay, I'm not sure what all that means exactly, but okay. Toadstool says, good morning, everybody. So, you know, one thing I did get I put this out yesterday, just because I was just thinking yesterday that, you know what? I really need to have a gigantic box of board games. It's been a while since I've gotten a gigantic box of board games. And I was sitting over there, and I was sitting there yesterday, and then this thing showed up. Let me reach over here. Well, so we got something else to unbox. Not today, but maybe in a couple of days. I got to plan out what we're doing on the morning grind. This should be our last Dark Sunday. But I got the Masters of the Universe He-Man game. I backed this a long time ago. I haven't been backing Kickstarters lately because I've got too many board games sitting around here. I barely get something painted up by the time something else shows up. But I got that. I got this giant thing called the Box of Power. The Box of Power. It also came with the Assault on Castle Grayskull pack right here. I guess this is some type of mini game or something like that. And then I also even got, and I haven't opened up any of this because I'm going to do it live with you guys when we do it in a couple of days. But the Castle Grayskull miniature castle or whatever. So there we go. So I've got them. And that even says it's a solo play game. So if I choose to paint them up, which I'm taking a little bit of a break from painting because I just did a whole bunch of painting, but I want to do the shows, and maybe, who knows, maybe that can eventually go on the show as well. Andrew says a big box of Motu seems appropriate. It does. It does. Good morning, Zero Theory. Zero Blade says, I need to see if any of my friends would like to see that. Yeah, it looks cool. It looks cool. It's been, of course, it's been forever. By Crom, that's something. Well, I don't even know what pledge that was. I just backed it at whatever pledge that was and got all that. I have no idea. It was a long time ago. It was a long time ago. That might be my last major game that I backed. That might have been the last one that I backed. So I might be all out of incoming Kickstarters. Oh no, I think it's not a Kickstarter. The only Kickstarter or crowdfunded board game that I think I have outstanding is this game called Total War. That's like, or Total War Rome or something. So I've got some type of Roman war game coming, but it's like the back years ago. Oh, it was the max level. Oh, okay. I don't even remember. Okay, let's go over to the messages, and then let's get started with our Dark Sun. The Morning Grind is brought to you by World Anvil. For all the writers out there, World Anvil has all the tools to help you write, organize, present, and publish rich settings with complex characters. Write, world build, and manage your story all in a single platform. Use the code MORNINGGRIND to get 40% off yearly subscriptions. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by the cool name RPG. Anyone will be able to use the system for any project they can imagine, and they can do so irrevocably, perpetually, and without paying a dime to anyone, ever. Support its development now on Kickstarter. And thank you for being here with me live on The Morning Grind. And if you're watching on replay, welcome to you as well. It's great to have you here. If you're enjoying The Morning Grind, please click the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. It will really help the channel grow, and I would be very thankful. We also have the Ravenkeep Discord server you can join if you would like to be a part of the community. Alright, that's what you need to know. Let's get to the main topic. Sable Phoenix says they're making a board game of Total War. Now, I'm not familiar. That was a video game, right? And actually, I'm not all that big into the video game scene. So, but yeah, let me show you what they made, just so you can see what it is. This right here, it was on GameFound. So does this look like it's based on some type of other franchise or something? So I backed this. The Total War Rome, the board game. Says based on based on the world-renowned video game Total War Rome, the board game allows up to 4 players to play as the leaders of Rome, Carthage, Greece, and Gallo-Germania. Each player will claim territories, recruit armies, fight enemies, raise taxes, spy, riot, and more. Sign up for updates. So it already ran. It's been a long time ago. This is one of those games that. So I think I still have this one outstanding. So supposedly, when this one gets finished, I'll have this one as well. So yeah, that's what it is. Sable Phoenix says the Total War series is fantastic. Rome and Shogun are my favorites. It's a whole franchise. Okay. I think I backed that one just because I wanted to see what GameFound was like. Okay, let me pull back up my Dark Sun stuff. So we had just, here we are. We had just looked at encounters. So we had different types of monsters and stuff. Hey, you know what? What are you supposed to roll? Is this one of those things for these encounters? I was just noticing. Do you roll? I think for these encounters, I don't think it says, but don't you roll a D8 and a D12 for the particular distribution on these? Because I noticed that this goes up to 20. Our encounter tables go up to 20, but they start at 2. So I think during that time, I think you're supposed to roll a D8 and a D12, and it kind of gave you a stepped distribution on the edges, but then flat across the top for a lot of numbers. So that could have been this right here. I don't specifically see it said, but probably would if you went over there into that. Or it could be, well, it could be 2D10. It could be 2D10. Tomocrat says, I always back the tiny games from Gamelin Games, tiny epic games. I have a couple of those, but I haven't gotten into them big. Looks like the higher level campaign map rather than individual battles, talking about the Total War. Hey, good morning. Good morning. Okay, so what are we doing with NPCs here? The denizens of Athos will react to the player characters in much the same way they would in any AD&D campaign. There are, however, of course, a few exceptions, and they are dealt with here. Spellcasters as NPCs. Priests in Dark Sun campaigns have no compunction regarding the sale of their magic services. An Athasian cleric or Templar will readily sell himself to cast magic spells for the prices shown of the NPC spell costs chart in the DMG. Remember to charge in ceramic pieces, not gold pieces. Druid NPCs, however, have no desire for monetary gain. They will sometimes cast their spells for free if the player characters are performing some task which benefits the druid's guarded lands or the natural environment in general. If they will have it will have to be clear to the druid NPC that the player characters are promoting what he believes to be the ultimate good. And if he thinks, oh, we didn't breathe and sip. I was sitting here sipping. I realized we didn't breathe and sip. I'll finish the sentence. And if he thinks there is a defiler among the party members, he won't offer any of his services regardless of their intentions. So, hey, let's remember to breathe and sip. It chills me out, makes it easier to read. So chill out as well. Let's do 2 deep breaths, deep inhale, complete exhale, and then take the sip of your favorite beverage this morning. There. Much better. Tomocrat says this. Well, James says that Tiny Epic is a great series. Tomocrat, I got into Epic Space and have been hooked ever since. So it says wizard NPCs will not readily offer their services for coin. Most preservers and defilers are outlaws within the city-states and won't even let it be known that they have spellcasting capabilities. Even outside the city-states, where folklore and common conceptions about the destructive nature of magic prevail, wizards are reluctant to let their identities be known. Since virtually everyone they meet could be a Templar attempting to discover their secrets, renegade wizards shun those who seek to buy their services. Rare instances may come up when a renegade wizard might allow himself to be bought. If the use of his magic can be concealed and it benefits him or furthers his alignment's calling, a wizard might be bought. Such occurrences will be rare, and the DM should allow such purchases sparingly. One notable exception to the reluctance of wizards to sell spells are the affluent, treacherous defilers who perform for the Sorcerer Kings themselves. These defilers are uncaring for and are, for the most part, above the law. If such an ambitious defiler is sought out to cast spells for coin, he may readily accept. However, the chance that he will later betray his buyer or even blackmail him is high. So here are the Templars as NPCs. So we did have Templars, the Templar class for PCs. We did have the Templar class for PCs, but we said, hey, they might be more appropriate as NPCs, but they could be neutral. So it could be good to have you could be a neutral Templar who's trying to fight back against perhaps, well, the evil of the Sorcerer Kings. So Templars are the most feared people in the city-states. Their power to accuse and imprison nearly everyone for treason keeps the city dwellers in terror. Not surprisingly, Templars tend to abuse this power they have for their own personal gain, which, as long as the city is administered and kept in order, does not bother the Sorcerer King. Templars perform 3 functions within a given city-state. Primarily, they comprise the city guards and officers of the Sorcerer King's armies. Second, they see to it that the city is administered, its business kept running, and its slaves fed. Finally, the Templars are responsible for maintaining the illusion that the Sorcerer King is a god. They have absolute power to enforce worship and homage to the Sorcerer King. Every Templar NPC will be actively pursuing one of these functions. One final unwritten function of the Templars is to advance through their ranks as rapidly as possible. This means by which a Templar might gain power and position are wide open, including bribery, theft, and even assassination of others within their ranks. Every Templar NPC can be counted on to accept underhanded schemes that will help him rise to power among his followers. Templar soldiers are the enforcement arm of their service to the Sorcerer King. Low-level Templars, 1 to 4, which don't have that many spells, are common soldiers, guards within the cities around the slave areas, practiced and drilled in formation around the city walls. Mid-level Templars, 5 to 8, are officers in charge of small, 1 to 100 units of guards, slave soldiers, or undead soldiers in times of war. High-level Templars, 9 plus, are usually generals or administrators keeping the army fed and equipped. In the administration of the city-states, Templars NPCs occupy all positions from waste removal to the mayorship. Oh, so we've got typical administrative Templar positions. Removers of waste, movers of grain, minor construction, disease control, maintenance of gardens, maintenance of roads, maintenance of walls. Joe Russell says, I like original Dark Sun defilers. The faster XP progression makes a nice temptation. They neutered defiling in 4th edition. Carl Make Stuff says, that's a bit weird, because if you're a Templar, your magic depends on the Sorcerer King, no? Yeah, I believe that was right. They get their magic from the Sorcerer King himself, not a god. So working against them is kind of rough. Zero Theory says, that's okay. No one considers 4E canonical. Yeah, this seems like the real deal here. So mid-level tax collection, major construction, slave control, grain distribution, gate monitor, assigner of permits, riot control. High-level coin distribution, construction planning, mayor of the city, governor of the farmlands. So lower level Templars, the one through the dirtier jobs that require hands-on work. Mid-level Templars, more responsibility. Then you move into the management of the city. Technically, the Sorcerer King is a god within his own city, and the Templars assure him of worship and obedience. In actuality, a Sorcerer King is not a god or a demigod, though he is generally an extremely powerful wizard or psionicist. However, the Templars erect temples and subjugate the populations to worship him. There isn't a noble, merchant, or peasant in the city-state who doesn't at least pay lip service to the Sorcerer King or the Templars who enforce his will. The DM must keep two things in mind when dealing with a particular Templar NPC. First, how will the Templar attempt to use the player characters to gain an advantage? He could accuse and imprison them, which always looks good in the eyes of the superior, or he could buy their services to perform a task such as an assassination, or simply make a superior look bad. Second, the DM must consider how player characters might appeal to the Templars' wicked ways of greed. In their quest for power, they sometimes are easily manipulated. But beware, though higher level Templars have played these games of treacheries before, and by their existence, they've proven to be good at them. An NPC druid will defend his guarded lands regardless of where the player characters are in the Atlas hinterlands. They're almost certainly a druid watching their every move. Those player characters who are responsibly use the druid's land will never be bothered. Hunting on their lands or using timber for equipment is, to the druid's part of the natural order of things, and he won't interfere. Irresponsible use of his guarded lands, however, will bring him out in the open with full force. Hunting his lands until there's no game left or stripping the vegetation will cause the druid to take action. An NPC druid who finds a defiler on his land will take steps to eliminate that threat. Tomocrat says, I have a Templar as the backer for my D&D group. Oh. Hey, Nico. Good to see you. Using the party to raise her power in the city-state. Clapping. Yeah, you end up getting used or something, perhaps. So, limits of vision. All of the conditions present in the visibility ranges of the player's handbook exist on Athos. However, there are a number of conditions unique to Athos that should be added. Sand blowing, sandstorm mild, sandstorm driving, night, both moons. Oh, this is the first time that I think I've read that there are two moons. May have been in the geography or someplace else. But I think we skipped reading the geography. I know we did. Could have been in there. Silt sea, calm, silt sea, rolling. Movement spotted, type, ID, detail. Time and movement. Of course, this actually might have something to do with the suns, too. Every city-state has its own calendar, but the most commonly used and considered is the calendar of Tyr. In the calendar of Tyr, years are counted off by using a pair of concurrently running cycles, one of 11 parts, the other of 7. The 11 part, or the Endling cycle, is counted and spoken first in the order presented below. The 7 part, or Cephean cycle, is counted and spoken second. The Endlian cycle is complete when Athos's 2 moons, Ral and Guthay, meet in the heavens, a major eclipse that occurs once every 11 years. The Cephean cycle is more abstract, meeting when agitation in the cosmos leads to fury. Every 77 years, the cycle repeats itself, ending with a year of Guthay's agitation and starting again with a new year of Ral's fury. Every 77-year cycle is called a King's Age. There have been 189 complete King's Ages since Tyr adopted this calendar, more than 14,500 years. So the first year of each King's Age is a year of Ral's fury. The next year is one of Friend's contemplation, followed by a year of Desert's vengeance. The 76th year of each King's Age is a year of enemy's reverence, followed by 77th year Guthray's agitation. So we've got Ral, Friend, Desert, Priest, Wind, Dragon, Mountain, King, Silt, Enemy, Guthay. And then we are cycling through Ral's Fury. So Fury, Contemplation, Vengeance, Slumber, Defiance, Reverence, and Agitation. Nate Jones says, "Hello, Nate. Good morning. In my Dark Sun campaigns, often players would get caught up in one Sorcerer King's or Queen's schemes, often caught between two or more of them and their Templars. Politics on Athos were deadly and the Templars frightening. So superstition and folklore surrounds each one of the years of the King's Age. Storms during a year of the wind's vengeance are believed to be more powerful and dangerous, so many overland trips are avoided. Sacrifice and prayers are called off to ward the great beast during the dragon's agitation. Years of enemies' contemplation are supposed to enliven treaties and alliances. The list goes on. Each year is made up of exactly 375 days, the exact time between the highest suns. Athasians have no seasons that govern their thinking of time. There's no marked difference in temperature or weather patterns. However, the year is divided into 3 equal phases: high sun, sun descending, and sun ascending. Highest sun is the first day of the year in the calendar of Tyre, and the lowest sun indicates the midpoint of the year, which incidentally occurs at midnight and is generally observed in nighttime ceremonies. Days are kept track of in a variety of ways. Merchants tend to identify days with phases, such as 35 days past the high sun. Other schemes divide the year into 25 weeks of 15 days each. The names of these days associated with important personages in the royal house. In Dark Sun campaigns, DMs may stick to 7-day weeks with the standard Gregorian calendar names for simplicity. Every 45 years, the year of the messenger, a brilliant comet comes to Athos. By night, one can read by the messenger's light, and it can be seen clearly in the full light of day. Folklore holds the messenger visits the dragon every 45 years to deliver him important information, reconnaissance the stars have observed since last visit. For campaign purposes, the calendar starts on high sun, the first day of the year of the priests of the Defiance in the 190th King's Age. The next year of the messenger will be the year of the enemy's slumber, 6 years away. Okay, so finally we get to rules on dehydration and how to die out in the wilderness. Joe says, we played a game years ago where we had to help Boreas, and he forced us to become his new Templars. Only one player actually had to take the class, though. So dehydration. As PC's adventure, one overriding consideration will almost certainly be the supply of water. Quite often in Dark Sun campaigns, characters will be in situations where the supply of water has no impact on the adventure. These dehydration rules are intended for extreme situations only and should be enforced when a lack of water could be life-threatening. So, water consumption. How much water a character needs depends on his level of activity and his race. Each active character, hard exertion, walking, riding, etc., needs 1 gallon of water per day. An inactive character, sitting, resting, or sleeping, needs 1/2 gallon of water per day. If the character is in the shade during his entire day, he only needs half the amount of water dictated by his activity. A character wearing a full suit of metal requires twice as much water each day to avoid dehydration. Thus, a character in metal armor who undertakes only light activity but is unable to remain in shaded areas will require 1 gallon of water. The character who drinks not enough water will suffer the effects of dehydration. Unless you're something different, you're one of these unusual races. So the Thri-Kreen can go for 1 week on the amount of water it takes to sustain a human for 1 day. Thus, Thri-Kreen characters only roll for dehydration once per week without water. And half giants, due to their great size, half giants need 4 gallons of water per day when active, or 2 gallons when inactive. Substituting other liquids. Many common beverages such as wine, beer, ale, and fruit juices can supplement a character's water intake. The quantities per day remain the same. In times of desperation, the player may suggest more outlandish liquids to stave off dehydration. honey, tea sap, even the blood of fallen monsters. Generally, none of these are suitable substitutes. Effects of dehydration. The lack of water is reflected by the game as reduced constitution. Beginning with the first day a character does not receive his adequate allotment of water, consult the dehydration table at midnight and apply the result. So, dehydration effects table: amount of water, full requirement, no loss of constitution. Half or more of requirement, 1d4. Well, 1d4, that's quite a bit. Less than half of requirement, 1d6. That could be a large loss on a single day. Constitution losses are cumulative over consecutive days of dehydration. A character's hit point adjustment, system shock, resurrection survival, poison save, and regeneration rate all drop accordingly. Every drop in the character's hit point adjustments from +1 down to 0 or from -1 to -2 will reduce the character's hit points by a number equal to the character's level. Highest level for dual or multi-class characters. A character whose constitution reaches 0 is dead. There we go. Such characters have a resurrection survival number of 25%. We were taking a look at the constitution table yesterday, and I said that I think it'd be fun to create an AD&D character. Where's my list of things that I thought we could be doing? Well, they were sitting someplace around here. It would be fun to go through creating an AD&D character, because even though you're not rolling ability checks because you don't have that unified action resolution system, so you're not using it in the same way that you're using it in 5th edition. So in some cases, that actual score doesn't have the same kind of impact. There are other things that you do with it, such as the system shock rolls, resurrection survivals, poison save, and regeneration, which are out there. So in some ways, it actually does more. The number itself, you're not constantly referencing, you're not constantly doing something with, you're not doing checks with. Not exactly that you make a lot of constitution checks in 5th edition anyway, but in that particular case. But even though the actual score on all of your different abilities doesn't matter quite as much, or isn't used, that's a better way to put it, isn't used, that actual score isn't used quite as much as it would be in 5th edition. There were other things that it did apply to you, such as system shock, resurrection, survival, poison save. And it was pointed out to me, and I haven't gotten a chance to look at this, but I got an email after yesterday's stream about a book that was on the DM's Guild called a basic guide to your legacy abilities and scores. Let me put this up. This is maybe something we should go into, because I just basically got it downloaded. James says, yeah, but alcohol is a dehydrant. Yeah, I was expecting it to actually say something different there. I was expecting it to say something like I was expecting it to say something different. But I guess, I guess it's just easier to, if you're traveling along with mead and something else, I guess it works. Let me take this down for just a second. Present, share screen. So I was sent this, excuse me, a basic guide to your legacy abilities and scores, dichotomy and dilemma. So this might be something that we need to look at as an unofficial thing, unofficial fan content. But what is this? I was told that so it's trying to add back in, like, here's your ability score, your modifier. So for strength, here is your lift and open bars and gates right here, your lift. So I guess this is in pounds, I guess. Open, bars, gates, dexterity, locks, traps. Lift references the maximum weight a character can deadlift. Open references is a DC to open or access a blocked door or passage that is not mechanically locked. Bars refers to the chance to bend steel or break iron about 1 diameter. Gates represents lifting or opening or forcibly getting past gates. So the purpose of this was to kind of add that part back in. So here we go. So here was be constitution. So we've got a modifier over here. Here is our shock, heal, intelligence, learn, spell, read languages. System shock represents how easily a humanoid-like being, I guess, reaches unconsciousness, specifically from physical damage, critical injuries, or severe trauma. Heal represents a natural rate of healing per hour without magic use. Okay, so at 20, you get 1-to-1. But at 10, you've got like 1 per 12 hours. That's an interesting way to do it. Because now it's an additional step, of course, that your constitution governs your healing rate more directly, because in that AD&D book we did see, I think I said that, hey, you get regeneration at a certain level, and that was, I believe, at 20 you could actually start regeneration, but regeneration is different from healing. But what if you just added all of that together and said, listen, your constitution tells you how many hit points you get back per some number of hours. Now, the problem with that, of course, is then you got people healing at all different kinds of rates. It's probably easier just to go, hey, it's a rest, everybody. But then you wouldn't have the all of a sudden having regeneration all of a sudden appear at level at Constitution of 20. Intelligence learn represents the chance for a success when learning a spell for the first time, plus the maximum number of that spell level the caster can access based on his intelligence. Read language is for all characters and creatures based upon the intelligence to read or write languages. First, it represents how many different languages a character can read or write, then the chance to read languages they don't know. Wisdom, bonus spells, scroll fail. So bonus spells are for magic users, limited to first level spells only. All spells have a chance to identify illusion-based magic upon wisdom. Scroll failure is the result of organic errors on scrolls. No matter how well written a scroll, reading can result in all casters reading scrolls might have a chance to misread its contents. Total number of henchmen, morale, any morale modifier for henchmen based on charisma. So this was sent to me yesterday. So this is, I guess, an attempt to put that back in, put that kind of thing back in. So it's just short. And this was pay what you want. So it's also free up on DM's Guild if you want to check it out. So probably a good time to talk about that. Oh, Zero Theory says, I just got another email for a new Black Flag playtest thingy. I was just thinking about them yesterday. Stargate Mind says this is a free publication. A few thousand downloads off the DM's Guild. Great for players and DMs. So let's go over here. Let's go back to Dark Sun. There we go. Okay, so we're taking quite a bit of constitution loss over here. Rehydration. A character can rehydrate by drinking his full allotment of water through the course of one day. At the end of that day, his constitution score goes back up to 1d8 points. His consecutive day goes back up by 1d8 points. Each consecutive day, the character's water needs are met, restores another 1d8 points until the character is fully recovered. Lost hit points are regained at the same at a character's normal recovery rate. So, example of dehydration. Theseus, a human third son of a noble family, is captured by elven nomads. When the family fails to pay the ransom, the elves turn him loose in the desert without food or water. His constitution score is 15. After the first day without any water, he rolls on a 3. He rolls a 3, and on a d6, bring his constitution temporarily down to 12. Since Theseus is a 5th level fighter, 5 of his hit points were due to his original constitution of 15, so those are temporarily lost as well. After a second day without water, Theseus rolls a 6 on a d6, bringing his constitution down to 6. Since the hit point adjustment for a character with a constitution score of 6 is -1, He will temporarily lose another 5 hit points. On a third day, he rolls a 1, bringing his constitution down to 5. Since the hit point modifier is still -1, Theseus loses no more hit points on the third day. But on the fourth day, he is found by a half-elven trader who gives him a full gallon of water. Theseus rolls a 1d8 and regains 6 constitution points. His lost hit points will return more slowly in accordance with his normal healing rate. Let's see. What's free? Dark Sun is pay what you want on the DM's Guild. No. That the document that I just brought up that was called that it was the way to potentially add different modifiers or different effects of your different effects from AD&D back into the 5th edition ability scores. It's called Dichotomy and Dilemma, a basic guide for your legacy abilities and scores. So that's what's free on the DM's Guild, not Dark Sun. Nico says, this setting makes me think of stories with themes like Healing Back the Earth or Paradise Lost or maybe Gritty Survival. But I've heard that D&D is more about play than story. Is that so? Well, I think it depends on who's playing. Gritty Survival, yes. Could be Paradise Lost. Healing Back the Earth, so it's like the Dying Earth kind of stuff. Joe says, in AD&D, the actual attribute score mattered. Most generic tasks required a d20 roll under your attribute value plus or minus any difficulty modifiers. Zero Theory says, that makes sense. Isn't 3 or 4 days without water all a person can take? Hey, good morning, Arun, here from the Positive Fandom channel. I was watching her play, streaming the Harry Potter game last night. Good morning. Good to see you here. JDM says, good morning. Hey, good morning. Joe Russell says, Google says it's about 3 days without water. Yeah, I think that's generally what the average is. The average that will kill a human are 3 minutes without air, 3 days without water, and 3 weeks without food. Stargate Mind says, I have Dark Sun, The Will and the Way, if you would like me to send that to you. It helps give players and DMs a place to start in Dark Sun. Yeah. Was it you who said that was a great, somebody said that was a great introduction to Dark Sun, that particular story, right? Or that's a campaign, right? Yeah, I would definitely check that out. Sable Phoenix says, although some people have survived longer without food, although probably wish they hadn't. Mad Max. I know you just like fantasy Mad Max. Oh, yes. Please do hit the like button, everybody. I forget to say that. So please do hit the like button if you're here. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Nico says, to clarify, I've heard that story can become very intrusive in a tabletop RPG game. It's like forcing something where it doesn't belong. Well, you don't want to railroad players. You don't want to railroad the players. But I think that's going to be dependent on the particular group. Some will definitely want a lot of story. Others will not, and just hack and slash and go through a dungeon. Tomocrat says, Will and the Way is a good psionic book. What is my list of... I hope I don't have to rethink my list of topics. No, I'm sure they're sitting around here someplace. Because the Psionics Handbook is on it. I want to look at the Psionics Handbook since the Psionics was such a big part of this particular campaign setting. And I don't remember anything about it. Zero Theory says the styles and exotic weapons give it a post-apocalyptic feel with it not being that at all. Controlled rails is how I see it, Tomocrat says. Oh, The Will and the Way is a psionic setting book? Okay. Thank you, Stargate. Jeff Cowell says, I've gone 3 days with no food or water and was still feeling good. Admittedly, not in the Dark Sun settings. Yeah, not perhaps walking through the desert trying to fight off monsters. I need to do another 72-hour fast. I just haven't been able to do it. So, transporting water. Water must be carried in... Oh, let me put this back up. Water must be carried in skins or barrels. The wine skin listed in the equipment list carries 1 gallon of liquid. The small barrel carries 30 gallons. Every gallon of water with its container weighs 9 pounds. Animals and dehydration. Animals also suffer dehydration. Tiny animals need 1/8 of a gallon. Small animals need half gallon. Man-sized animals need 1 gallon. Larger than man-sized animals need 4 gallons. Huge animals need 8 gallons. Gargantuan creatures need 16 gallons. Animal water intake can be cut by half for shade or inactivity, or quartered for both. At the end of a day, if an animal doesn't get its full allotment of water, there's a 10% chance it will die. That chance increases by 10% for each additional day without water. Animals fully rehydrate after 1 day in which they drink their full allotment of water. Movement by night. At night, the temperatures in all types of terrain drop significantly, although moisture is still at a premium. If a character decides to travel by night, they gain the benefit of working in the shade, half water consumption. The drawback to such plans is that a good rest under the blistering sun during the day is difficult. Characters who are traveling by night must seek shelter during the daytime rest periods. Rock outcroppings or caves will suffice, as well as tents or other makeshift buildings. If such shelter cannot be located, each character must make a save versus poison in order to rest well. Those who fail will sleep fitfully and cannot memorize spells or recover hit points. Thri-kreen obviously are not subject to this rule. So we've got overland movement rules. If you're suffering from dehydration, you cannot undertake a forced march. So human race, movement points, forced march for a 10-hour marching day. Terrain modifiers and overland movement. Mounted overland movement. Care of animals. We do have some weird animals in here, like the kank, the large docile insect used mainly as an individual mount. It can either carry a 200-pound rider or 200 pounds of extra cargo, or 200-pound riders with no extra cargo. The Melekut, that's the giant thing that hauls the caravans, right? Use of vehicles. Oh, new spells. Okay, let's take a look at new spells. Stargate Mind says, I live in Lake Havasu, Arizona. It's like Dark Sun on a lake, LOL. 125-degree summers. Ugh. Yeah, Draco says, the rule of 3 is a fist rule. It always depends on situations or persona. Yeah, it's just your rule of thumb. Story, settings, and atmosphere can be a backdrop for player characters to interact and play it. Themes, look, and feel means a lot in role-playing. The kank is my favorite new herding animal. Yeah, Draco says, in a survival situation, I'd be worried if I didn't have access to water in day 3, to be honest. I probably would too. Food, especially if you've got some extra weight on you, you can deal with for a little while. But especially if you've got to be active. That's why I was working on getting together the water kit. Oh, did I move my big box? I guess I did. Someplace. I just got one of the Grail water filters to put in my water kit. Of course, you've got to have access to water, but that's for cleaning water. All right, so we got some new spells here. Magic use on Athos is shaped and molded by the harsh realities of that world. Influences on the foul defilers, the valiant efforts of preservers, and the corrupt researches of sorcerer kings have left their mark upon the wizard's trade. This chapter highlights the important differences between Dark Sun and Magic and other AD&D game worlds. Here's fine. We talked about Find Familiar yesterday, didn't we? So here are what your familiars would be in Dark Sun. In the Dark Sun campaigns, substitute this table for that found in the player's handbook. Roll D20, roll familiar, bat, beetle, cat. You can have a bat, a beetle, a cat, black cat, pseudo dragon, rat, scorpion, or snake as your familiar. Mount, wild kank, trained kank, Inix, Melekut, and Hoda at 18th level. Second level spell, Detect Psionics, a divination spell. This spell is similar to the meta-psionic devotion psionic sense, but uses magical rather than psionic means. The spell also allows characters to detect the expenditure of psionic strength points PSPs in the atmosphere around him. The diameter of the sphere is equal to the range of the spell. At level 4 or below, the spell lets only the characters know the PSP were expended within the sphere, not how many PSPs from what individual, what powers or devotions were used, and whether the PSPs were expended to internalize a power or maintain one. Okay. Fool's Gold. Copper coins are seldom. So here we talk about copper. Copper coins are seldom minted on Athos. However, copper is still the medium of this spell and can be turned into solid gold. In Dark Sun campaigns, the area of effect is reduced to 1 cubic inch, about 15 golds per level. Water first, shelter second, then food. Joe says, I saw recently there was an audiobook presentation of the Dark Sun novels on YouTube. Prism Pentad. Oh, that's interesting. Nate says, you need to look at the Dragon Kings supplement. It covers the epic level demigods that were movers and shakers of Athos. Okay. I didn't know that existed. New spells, third level spells, Fleet Feet. Fourth level spells, Ice Storm. In Dark Sun campaigns, the water, hail, and ice created by the spell is only temporary. It will disappear 3 turns after the completion of the spell. Even water consumed in that time disappears, giving its imbiber no benefit. Whoa. So magical creation of water just out. Mass Morph, Psionic Dampener. Raise. This spell duplicates the life-draining effects peculiar to defiling magic. The spell may be cast by a defiler or a preserver, though this defiler will cause more damage with it. The casting of the spell causes a large area of vegetation to instantly give up its magical potential and turn to ash. So according to those rules that we looked at, unlike the natural destruction of defiler's magic, Raise affects all vegetation within the radius of the spell regardless of the terrain. The area of the effect for a preserver is 1 yard per level of the caster. For a defiler, it's 5 yards per level of the caster in lieu of normal defiling damage. The ash created is black and gray, completely devoid of life and life-giving elements. Nothing will grow there for half a year, leaving the lifeless circle of scar in the ground. So why would you want to do that? I mean, I guess if you're... because at least the defiler got benefits and got to cast another spell when that happened. Transmute sand to stone. Good morning, Vanessa. Good morning. Good to see you. The Priest book, Earth, Wind, Fire, is good also. I didn't know there was this much stuff for Dark Sun. Stargate Mind says, I've adapted AD&D Psionics to 5e without PSP or spell slots. It's very user-friendly and unlike the other dull mechanics that mimic PSPs. You may have sent me an email about that again, and I'm still behind on email. Did I say hello to Vanessa? Hey, Vanessa. Good to see you. Wall of Ice. Like Ice Storm, the ice created disappears 3 turns after the conclusion of the spell. Transmute rock to mud. They're really harping on this water thing. The mud created by the spell is of magical nature. No water can be gotten out of it. Rejuvenate. This spell grants the ability to support vegetation to an area of ground. In the case of ground made barren by defiler magic, Rejuvenate dispels the ground's sterility, making it immediately capable of supporting vegetation. This spell may be cast on any ground short of solid rock, including sand, rocky sand, or soil or dust. In either of these cases, the spell affects the ground in a circle extending away from the caster. He must stand in the middle of the area he wishes to revitalize. The radius of the circle is 5 feet per level of the caster. Once cast, the soil is enriched and moistened, and the layer of fine grass emerges instantly. For the duration of the spell varies. Once cast, the moist soil and grass are not magical and are subject to all the forces of nature upon them. They will, however, survive a week, even in the worst conditions. Rejuvenate will also otherwise last until another defiler spell destroys the vegetation there. Defilers cannot cast Rejuvenate. Dark Sun, Wall of Iron. In the Dark Sun campaigns, the duration of this spell is 1 turn per level of the caster. Reincarnation. In the Dark Sun campaigns, substitute this table for that found in the player's handbook. So here are the different animals. Oh, look, Kenku is on here. Transmute water to dust. In the Dark Sun campaigns, this spell has no reverse. That was back when you could reverse spells. Doom Legion. This spell creates skeletons or zombies from the remains of an army defeated in battle. The spell must be cast on the site of the conflict where the fallen bodies still lie. When cast, only the bodies or skeletons of the losing side will be animated. If the battle took place less than 3 months before the casting of the spell, the undead will be zombies. Any longer period of time will yield skeletons. Even if the bones have turned to dust, they will reassemble when the spell is cast. The number animated depends on the radius of the spell and number of bodies with it. The DM decides what level of conflict was fought on the ground where the spell is cast, then rolls to find out how many undead are raised. A skirmish, 3d12. A small battle, 3d12, 6d12. Major battle, 10d20. This is generating a lot of undead. So area effect, 120-yard radius. Takes 7 rounds to cast. It's a 7th level necromancy spell. Well, that's true. Malibu says to deny another defiler access to that energy. I guess that would work because if you didn't want them to cast a spell, you could just destroy the vegetation around them. So that could be Malibu. Animated bodies that are less than 1 yard beneath the surface will dig themselves out within 1 turn of casting the spell. Those deeper will not animate. The bodies cannot have been disturbed before the casting of the spell. Those that are moved, searched, or in other ways disturbed do not animate. Well, searched, that's a major impediment right there, right? Because you think that in many cases the bodies of losing, especially in an environment like this, a campaign setting like this, that the bodies would at least have been searched and maybe even stripped. So I could see, that happening and then throwing the bodies of the losers in some kind of major, like pit or something like that, and then being able to animate those. I don't know. I might be inclined to be a bit lax on searched. There will be a chance the animated army of undead will ignore the spellcaster and undertake their own original mission, depending on how long the vanquished army had laid to rest. Well, this is also cool. Time at rest, chance to ignore 90%, 1 week, 1 month, over 100 years, 0%. An army of undead that ignores the spellcaster will not necessarily attack him, but it will not obey him. It will pursue revenge for its defeat, advancing on its previous enemy, even if that no longer makes sense considering the passage of time. Should the army not ignore him, the undead will consider the spellcaster its new leader and will follow him until every individual is somehow destroyed. The material components for the spell are I was wondering that drop of blood from one of the unit's old opponents or a descendant thereof, plus a handful of soil from the unit's original homeland. So it takes a while to do this. I like that. The spell comes a drop of blood from old units, old opponents, and a handful of soil from the unit's original homeland. I think that's a cool spell. 8th level spell, Create Tree of Life. By means of this spell, a wizard can enchant a living sapling to become a magical tree of life. And we talked about these in a different, in a previous morning grind. The sapling must have already sprouted from one of the ground that the wizard can transplant such a sapling before casting a spell. It will grow to its full size in only 1 week, but it has full powers and capabilities immediately after the spell is cast. Any tree less than 1 year old will suffice. The spell cannot be cast on an older tree. A sapling and a copper wire formed into the shape of a tree. Pre-spells. In Dark Sun, Create Water produces only 1/2 a gallon of water per level for the caster. In all other ways, the spell is exactly described in the player's handbook. So a priest can create water. So this is the first time that we've seen create water. Now, some of our priests are priests of water, right? Because they're elemental priests. I'm not going to open up the book. But so priests can create water, but only 1/2 a gallon of water per level of the caster. So that's really not enough to supply you in great need. And particularly not a party. Merciful Shadows. This spell creates a magical shade to protect the individual from the scorching sun. Once cast, the individual gains the benefit of being in the shade, half water consumption requirements, even when traveling or fighting in the full light of sun. This individual so protected appears normal, except that he doesn't sweat as much as expected, and his coloration is a bit gray. The reverse of this spell, Blistering Rays, intensifies the light and heat of the sun on the victim. The individual must have twice the water per day for the duration of the spell, or suffer the effects of dehydration. Also, in each round of combat, in the open sun, the individual must make a constitution check to keep from passing out. The saving throw applicable to the reverse of the spell negates its effects. The spell in its reverse has no effect on any individual who is in the shade. Second level spells. Third level spells. Okay, create food and water. In Dark Sun, this spell can create a maximum of 1/2 gallon of water per level of the caster. The remainder of the material created will be bland food. In other ways, the spell is exactly as described in the player's handbook. So the priests can do this. Air Lens. Call Woodland Being, not available in Dark Sun campaigns. Commune. You commune with powerful beings from the elemental plane to answer questions. Conjure Elemental. Create Tree of Life, 6th level spell. Identical to the 8th level spell of the 8th level wizard spell of the same name. And that brings us to the end of that Dark Sun book. We have now looked through basically all of Dark Sun. I enjoyed that. I thought I learned a lot. I understand why people like it now. Zero Theory says, beginning of a mystery adventure. Why are people randomly being poked in streets with needles, collecting spell components for that spell for doom and gloom to come? Ah, yeah, it could be. I like that. Well, that was neat. I do want to look at psionics. So we will take a look at the psionics book so we understand how psionics worked, because I certainly don't remember. Where? I had written potential topics down the back of something. And I'm sure it's sitting around here, but now I can't find it. But the psionics handbook we want to look at. I do want to look at the Dungeon Builder's Guidebook. We've got the He-Man boxes to open up. I'm not sure what day will be a good day to do that, but we'll do that soon. I'd also want to figure out how to play. Let's see. There were several other topics here. Yeah, psionic. Yeah. It's problematic that Wizards of the Coast doesn't like Dark Sun anymore. Yeah, that's what's problematic. Well, see, Carl makes stuff, says, okay, oh yeah, we were going to talk about that. Did we find anything problematic in it though? Well, okay, so let me see if I can find where, James, didn't you put a link to what Michael St. John was saying in the Discord server? In fact, I should put a link to the Discord server. Invite people. Discord server. Raven Keep Discord server. I need to plan out and make the thumbnails and links for everybody for some coming days so I can think about it. Okay, so yeah, so here is let's look up Michael's commentary here. He posted this on, this is the Dark Sun campaign setting part 2. I'll share screen. Oh, wait. Now I don't see it. I think it is a point-based system. Yeah. Well, he might have deleted the comment. No, 7 comments. Like, where's... Hang on.
Greetings. My name is Monty Martin. And I'm Kelly.
Hang on. Well, if I can't find it, because I thought it was something that we should talk about. But now I don't see it. Huh. Well, you know, my issue surrounding that, sort by. Oh, here it goes. Here it goes. I found it. Okay. Never mind. It is here. It is here. So, you know, what I was saying regarding this is nobody has to do anything. I mean, so the fact that Wizards doesn't want to return to Dark Sun for whatever reason, well, fine. I mean, nobody has to do anything. But my issue there was that, with what was going on, was this terminology regarding this use of the word problematic. Because to me, it doesn't even tell me what type of discussion we're supposed to be having. Like, you know, it's so general that this term, oh, something's problematic. We're having something that's problematic. What does that even mean? What even kind of discussion are we supposed to be having? Here would be something that Wizards of the Coast could say that's much more dramatic, or much more dramatic, much more direct, and a reason why they might not want to return to Dark Sun. For instance, Wizards of the Coast could say that, hey, you know, we are trying to move the Dungeons and Dragons brand into much more family-friendly territory, trying to turn it into a much more mass market type of franchise. And we want it to basically become the Marvel universe of the fantasy sphere. So that's the direction that we see for Dungeons and Dragons going. You know, we're putting out the movie, we're putting these kinds of things out. And so as a result of trying to go in a much more mass market, family friendly kind of direction with the style and tone and feel of our movies, we no longer have interest in returning to some of the darker, grim and grittier aspects of Dungeons and Dragons in days past, which includes something like Dark Sun. That was probably overly wordy, but that would be kind of that would be a very direct statement. And then you might not like it. I mean, you might not like it. You're like, oh man, I don't really want Dungeons and Dragons to become, you know, to do that, but oh, well, it's theirs. Nothing I can do about it. At least that was a straight answer for why someone might not want to return to something like Dark Sun. That'd be a very straight answer. Then you can accept it, you cannot. But like I said, nobody can make anybody do anything. So, you know, that would just be that. But instead, we get this, oh, it's problematic. And what does that mean? And there also seems to, what does that even mean? So we know what kind of discussion we're supposed to have. And then also, I do feel like there's this moralistic tone to it, right? This kind of moralistic and kind of judgmental kind of tone, whenever that kind of word is used in quite a bit. So, Jose says, DS Dark Sun is problematic for what is, to my understanding, a foreigner of what family friendly is considered for an American corporation. Right. Yeah. So there you go. But see, it's problematic. Zero Theory says problematic is nebulous. Frank says, hi. Good. Hey, Frank. Good to see you. Good to see you. Daniel says, I think slavery is a really tough subject on the PC scale of things. Frank says there's something you can do about it. You can just play Older's Edition. Well, yes, you can still play Older's Edition. I'm talking about there's nothing that you can do to try to make them do something they don't want to do, or change the brand into something they don't want it to be. You can't do anything about that. I mean, I'm sure there are some people who might want to talk endlessly about it on YouTube. I'm sure there's that. And then some people will say that that's what we're doing. We're trying to get them to change their mind. But I mean, I wouldn't. Nico says problematic means whatever Wizards of the Coast wants it to mean, which translates into this is the work of the devil. Tomocrat says, I think it's still the mule as a slave race, like monkeys from Spelljammer. Okay, so let's see Michael St. John brought that up. So here we go. Let me add this to stream. So he says this. Michael St. John says this. You skipped right over something problematic that isn't slavery. Reread that section on elven merchants. Oh, so maybe we should do that. So this is back when we were talking about elven merchants. Hang on, let me take that down for a second. Let me go over here and bring up so that was actually a different book, right? That was that Wanderer's Journal. The Wanderer's Journal. And we are supposed to put this and supposed to take a look at the section on elven merchants. probably in the society. Sorcerer kings, Templars, nobility, Freemasons, slaves. Okay, elven merchants. Okay, so here's what was said specifically about elven merchants. Some elven tribes earn their livelihood as traders. Usually they are less established than the merchant houses, so they sell their wares in crowded bazaars located at the edge of the true merchant quarters. Elves have a reputation for smuggling and selling banned goods, such as spell components. By the way, if you expect a merchant to guarantee his product, it's better to not buy from an elf. Okay, so that was what it said about elven merchants. I believe that was the reference. So that was a headline. Elven merchants. That says that right there. So you skipped right over something problematic that isn't slavery. Reread that section on elven merchants. It's a clear reflection of a racist belief. All elven merchants, and perhaps elves in general, are untrustworthy. You see that repeated throughout officially published material. There's a lot of racist undertones to much of what is in Dark Sun. Halflings, for example, the problem isn't that they're cannibals. The problem is that they're short cannibals who live in jungles. This was a popular trope from the time Europeans first started colonizing Africa that survived well into the 20th century. Also, consider the name of the Mool race, half-dwarves. Is it possible that it is a shortening of the word mulatto? If you consider the connections of that word, you might begin to understand why Wizards of the Coast sees selling this as radioactive. It may not be easy for someone who is a white male to see immediately, which is why you rolled right over it. But there are also ways to address these problems. Calling these things out as stereotypes or slurs within the setting is one way to address the problem. It would then become a commentary on racism, just as much as Dark Sun is already a commentary on environmentalism. There are also references to harems and pleasure slaves, which is something that simply could be left out of any new publication. I'm sure there's more in the setting that I am missing that could cause problems. I'm pointing all of this out as someone who has a lot of these material and have loved the setting since it was first published. I understand why Wizards of the Coast would be hesitant to revive the setting, but I think there are ways to address these problems which can turn these negatives into a positive. So what do we think about that? JDM says, I think you hit the nail on the head, Heath. Controversial content or themes that probably won't appeal to a broad market are not as profitable. Hasbro stock is way down and they need guaranteed. How do you get guaranteed though? But yeah, that if we're trying to take this, like I said, and the idea of Dungeons and Dragons becoming the Marvel of fantasy, that was something that people have brought up in the YouTube comments here. They need a home run in terms of profit for their next big thing, and yeah, they need a home run in terms of profit in a way, in a big way that is more money than just selling more Dungeons and Dragons books. I think that's why they're trying to go with the movie franchise and things like that. How do you make more money for the stockholders and for the corporation in general? I mean, yes, they could increase the number of Dungeons and Dragons books they produce, because they kind of don't produce that many in a year, right? So one way would be, okay, we got to actually produce some more Dungeons and Dragons material that people want to buy. But that's probably, even if they doubled their book output, that's not the level of money that they probably need. It's much more. Zero Theory says, oh, wow. Carl Makes Stuff says, same argument as slavery. Pointing out racism exists is not an endorsement. Yeah, pointing out racism exists is not endorsement. I've got some thoughts on here, but I want to see what people say here. James says, no one trusted any merchant class because of the threat they posed to the powers of the crown and church. So the crown and church and the loyalists spread mistrust to mitigate the threat. Has nothing to do with race. Zero Theory says, well, any elves or halflings that have a problem with this are free to bring it up. Carl Makes Stuff, the Mool thing is a bit of a reach, in my opinion. So, okay, so yeah, let's see here. So, reread the section on elven merchants. Okay, so here was what I thought. I mean, you're right. I don't think that I discussed anything about the elven merchants when we were talking about that. Going through that particular book on that second day, I probably did read it and keep going. But it's very clear to me, that this Wanderer's Journal, this book that's describing all of this, is an in-universe text. This is written by a specific character within the world of Dark Sun on Athos. I mean, the Wanderer's Journey starts out with the sentence, "I live in a world of fire and sand. The crimson sun scorches the life from anything that crawls or flies, and storms of sand scour the foliage from the bottom of the ground. This is my home, Athos. It's an arid and bleak place, a wasteland with a handful of austere cities clinging precariously to a few scattered oases. It's a brutal and savage land beset by political strife and monstrous abominations, where life is grim and short." So from the very beginning, I understood that I was having the world of Athos described to me in an in-universe way by a particular character. And then we get more information about this character, bits and pieces of it, as we go through this journal. From what I read, I don't actually end up knowing who this character is. Maybe it's in there, maybe it's not, maybe it's never revealed. But you end up getting different pieces and parts of his life as the thing goes on. So I knew very well that I was reading one person's perspective on what was going on in Athos. To me, that was just obvious. So when somebody says something like, you script right over something that's problematic that isn't slavery, reread the section on elven merchants. That's a clear reflection of a racist belief on elven merchants and perhaps all elves, that they are untrustworthy. And you see this repeated throughout the official material. Well, sure, this particular person that I'm reading doesn't like the elves and doesn't like the elf merchants, right? Does have that opinion of the elf merchants. I mean, that much was clear. But I mean, what exactly is the problem here? Which is, again, why I don't know what type of conversation I'm supposed to be having. Is the problem that there is a character in this fantasy world that doesn't like elf merchants? Is that the problem? Right? I mean, I write in-universe text all the time. In fact, it's become one of my favorite ways to express information about a fantasy world. I did that a lot in Journey to the Tree of Sorrows. I wish that material were out. But a lot, almost all, well, I get almost all of the material that I wrote for Journey to the Tree of Sorrows was expressed as in-universe texts. And I plan to do the exact same thing for Theophany and Unspeakable Cults. And even some of the Black Cipher is written as an in-universe text. So I like in-universe text because, yes, sure, you have to understand that you're reading from a particular person's perspective. And that information may be inaccurate. That information may not be totally correct. You're reading from a certain person's perspective. So, yeah, when I read that, he says that it may be difficult for someone who is white and male to see immediately, which is why I rolled over it. But did I just pass by that section on elf merchants because of something to do with being a white male, or did I just understand the context of the document? Perhaps I just understood the context of the document. And so, yeah, so moved on, right? Nico says, Heath, this is nonsense. All D&D is full of generalizations about race. This is the same logic that removed the attribute modifiers by races, and this logic's all references to race should be removed. Okay, and then we the Mool, right? So he does say that consider the name Mool half dwarves. Is it possible? Is it possible that it's a shortening of the word mulatto? If you consider the connotations of that world, you might understand why WotC sees this setting as radioactive. My mind, when I read that, went to mule. My mind went to mule. That's based on being a mule. M-U-L-E, right? So when you say, is it possible that it's this? Well, I can sit here and think of all kinds of things that might be possible. Is it possible that X might be Y? Is it possible that B might be C? Is it possible? I mean, I could do that all day. I mean, we can all sit here, particularly if we're interested in fantasy worlds and fantasy inclined and storytelling, we can ask if things are possible all day, but how much should we actually consider that? My mind went to mule. Brett says, I think it's definitely the brand position on racism, slavery, and cannibalism for a WotC Hasbro product, but interesting they did the 4E conversion for Dark Sun. Yeah, in fact, I don't know anything about 4E because, as I said before, I wasn't gaming at the time, so I happened to completely skip 4th edition. I didn't get back to gaming until 5th edition was out anyway. So I don't know anything about 5th edition, but I do think it's interesting that they created a 4E conversion for Dark Sun. So the only reason that I would kind of be interested in looking at it is just to know, okay, obviously they didn't have a problem making a 4th edition conversion for Dark Sun. So when did that come out? When was that published? Just 1 second. Let me go over here. Dark Sun 4E. It was a while ago. It wasn't that long ago, right? So, but by 2010, times were changing. So 2010, I believe it was. So that was 2010, which is several years ago, but it was still just 2010. But I would be interested to know what they did with it from a from the world building perspective. Did they keep its grim and brutal elements? I don't know. So, you know, how did they approach it then? Jose says, I didn't see Wizards of the Coast exploring I don't see Wizards of the Coast exploring serious themes in their settings. Sable Phoenix says, this idea has permeated mass media that you can't even use things that never have existed to discuss things that matter, like racism and slavery. It's what's making everything into pablum. Frank says, to do it right, they should not leave out any of the ugliness of the setting. That's what makes the setting. They should confront all of the brutal ugliness head on. Nico says, but to give the devil his due, this race idea in D&D is more than a little confused. Are these species? Looks to me that's a bad interpretation of Tolkien races that are not Darwinian races. Yeah, well, to me, in a fantasy world, as we use the word race in the fantasy context, traditionally, that doesn't necessarily mean species. It could, but a fantasy race doesn't necessarily mean species. Carl says mules is literally what the Sorcerer Kings, explicitly the bad guys, bred them to be. If it painted the Sorcerer Kings were good guys, it would be very different. Hey, building Persephone. Boy, we are deep in the quote problematic nature of Dark Sun. Zero Theory says, I'm 99% of the position that mule is a reference to mules, specifically by them mentioning they're sterile. Yeah, I completely agree with that. To me, that's one of the giant flags that this comes from something about being a mule. Sable Phoenix, speculative fiction has always been, from its inception, been a medium to present ideas that might be controversial in real life, but deserve to be examined, placing them in a framework that can do so more easily. I agree. Joe, yeah, see, somebody brought this up, and it may have been you, Joe, that I could completely see this world being done without any elves or dwarves. And I can see how they kind of got added back in, because somebody brought up that, oh, the powers that be said you got to add these things in. So Joe says, elves are mistrusted in Dark Sun because Tim Brown didn't even want them, but TSR forced their inclusion, so Tim made them as far from typical D&D happy woodland elves. Carl Makestuff says, exactly, it's meant to be a biased account from an unreliable narrator. Unreliable because he doesn't know everything for sure. Hey, Vision, good to see you. Carl says black merchants are dodgy. This one's a doozy. They even go on that calling a mule is a grave insult. Nico says, to answer your question, he means that the problem is that all elven merchants are untrustworthy, even if their race makes it that way. But then again, what's the point of race then? Let me read that again. To answer your question, he means that the problem is that all elven merchants are untrustworthy, as if their race makes them that way. But then again, what's the point of race then? At least according to this unreliable narrator, right? Okay, so JDM. So we're talking about how these are linguistically related. Spanish mule is mula. So mula plus toe. I mean, that's interesting. We could look more into that. Sable Phoenix, maybe human cultural norms and body language read the elven instincts the same way that we view sheep and mean that we should be treated as such. Lots of comments here. Building Persephone says mulatto is a derivation of the Portuguese for mule, a lowly beast that is a mix of two species and can't exist in nature. Yeah, so some people don't want them to go back and remake it, right? Zero Theory says, and about Wizards of the Coast, I think most of them have been in agreement that we don't want them to remake Dark Sun. So, yeah, so I don't really necessarily agree with. Well, okay, the other thing I was going to say about this, but with the some of the commentary here, but let's say like, okay, you know, see references to harems or pleasure slaves, like that's nothing inherently wrong with having a fantasy campaign setting have harems and pleasure slaves. Like none of this to me would be necessarily off the table for any particular reason if I'm trying to construct a fantasy world and I'm trying to tell stories. So that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. But you know, it also to me it also is like, well, how big a deal is some of this stuff if you decided to even just change it? Like, what if you knew that you had people who really like Dark Sun, but you're like, oh, you know what? For whatever reason, X or Y, we probably shouldn't have. Let's say that the mule is a problem. So, but that word MUL, let's just say that that is potentially a problem. How long does it actually take to change that? Let's say you needed to change that to another word. I mean, it would take what, 10 seconds? I mean, a find and replace. You type in a find and replace for MUL, and you change it to a new word, like. That's like, is something really a problem if you could solve it in less than 10 seconds? You know, if that's the case, like if that were the case, let's say that they really want to do a really good Dark Sun campaign setting, but a problem is the MUL word for whatever reason. They don't like it. Well, you could fix that in 10 seconds. So is that a problem? To me, anything that can be solved in under 10 seconds really isn't a problem. And I wouldn't be going around saying that, oh, you know, it's problematic. It's problematic. And saying all that. If it is something that you don't want in there anymore and it can be changed in 10 seconds, then it's not really a problem. Frank says the bad thing should be left in the setting and shown to be bad. All right. Well, psionics wouldn't be solved in under 10 seconds. Well, you know, I'm not familiar with 5th edition psionics, right? So you're right. So, but that would be it. So that's but I wouldn't call that problematic. Like if somebody said, oh God, the Dark Sun campaign setting is problematic. You know, there's all this problematic material in there. I think somebody would just say, well, one of the problems is we would have to come up with a really good way to integrate psionics into 5th edition. That would be a much more straightforward thing. Why would you use the problematic terminology and phraseology if you just mean that, hey, we need better psionics rules for 5th edition? Like, Stargate Mind says it takes about 24 hours work to change the average old D&D or AD&D model. I tested this. Remove pronoun errors and such. Wizard of the Coast has 1,500 employees. Yeah, aren't you supposed to a herf or a dwarman? Like that's what we're doing now, right? As far as the mixing of different fantasy races. Who Wharf sounds rad too. Okay, well, we have this has been a great conversation. I think this has been a great way to round out the look at the Dark Sun campaign setting. Now we may take a look at some other things at a certain point. At a certain point, a thorough explanation of problematic would result in a thorough debunking. Well, like it's a way to avoid those conversations. And now sometimes that may be what it is. Well, I'm going to use this word problematic because if I actually talked about what the problem was, the problem either wouldn't be there or it'd be really easy to solve. Right. So they won't explain it. All right. So thank you so much for being here. I have really enjoyed this. Are we doing a Friday night stream tonight? This is Friday. God, I don't know. I like to stream on Friday nights. But on the other hand, I've got a ton of stuff I've got to do. If I stream, I'll put it out. I'll put it out in the Discord server. And then also, of course, I'll create something in advance here on YouTube so that you'll be able to see it, you know, a couple of hours in advance. If I stream something, I feel like it needs to just be like playing a video game. If there's a really good video, a retro video game that I want to play. But on the other hand, I've got a bunch of work to do. And tomorrow I'm going to be gone because I've got lunch with family. So I have enjoyed this as well. We will continue, and I will try to put out things we're going to be talking about as far as topic goes in advance so that you know what's coming. All right, people, everybody, enjoyed it so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you guys. I will see you tomorrow for sure. For sure, I will see you tomorrow, 9:30 for the next morning grind. Until then, grind on. And happy St. Patrick's Day.